Hello, and welcome to ARC Encounters. I'm your host, Melanie, and I'll be guiding you through this journey along the ARC path. This week's topic is boosting your immunity. Has there ever been a time where you wanted to boost your immunity? Well, our guide, Casey Cox, will guide us through this journey along the ARC path. And we may even encounter a special VIP. I'm curious to see how today's lens of leadership will tie into immunity. So what are we waiting for? Let's get you started on the ARC Encounter journey with this video.
AHRK is the lifestyle path to better choices. It empowers us to live life to the fullest and paves the way for people like you and me to discover our unique purpose and passion. Choosing to walk the AHRK path invites transformation and growth in 5 key areas of life: leadership, communication, mindset, community, and lifestyle. As we dive into these lenses, they redirect our focus and guide us into a deeper understanding of where we're at today and where we're going tomorrow. This is ARC Encounter. Welcome to the ARC Path.
I am Casey, and I am your guide on the ARC Encounter. Welcome, and we are so glad that you've joined us today. You just watched an amazing little intro about the ARC journey and these lenses that we call the 5 key lenses of formation. What we're looking at today is leadership. And really what leadership is, it's an art and it's an act. As we look at it as an art, it's developed, it's learned, it's grown. As an act, it's something you engage, it's something that you do. And I am somebody who loves to be in action. And I've asked my guest today, somebody who's inspired me to take more action in our community as an act of leadership. We're also talking about immunity. And immunity is an amazing concept. We're going to approach it from so many different lenses, but as we look at it today with immunity and leadership, we're going to recognize the system. You can't just do one thing and boost your immunity. You have to engage in overall experience and really have an end goal in what you're going for. So today, as we engage boosting your immunity through a leadership lens, I am so excited to invite to you my guest. My guest is Raymond Foster. Raymond Foster and I have been friends for a number of years, and he's been leading this journey a few years longer than me. I won't give a number about how many years more he has than me, but overall, I call Raymond a VIP. Raymond, welcome to the ARC Encounter.
Thanks, Casey. Glad to be here.
So glad you're here. I would love for you to share with others what makes you a VIP.
Well, your first letter is value. I personally don't like the word values.
Which is why I have you here, because you challenge everything I do.
I do, and I'm going to challenge you on this one.
And you're an awesome leader. Keep going.
Because values are created by the individual, and they have been divisive. It's a postmodernist creation. I prefer the word virtues.
Go for it.
And I think back to the classic virtues. And so for my life, as I go through, I look at thinking that virtues, these are things that exist outside of me. Wisdom, strength, beauty, fortitude. These exist outside of us as human beings. And those are the things we measure our actions against, not an internal thing that we create. So for my V is virtue. Perhaps that's what I value.
You value the freedom to change things and make them the way that they exist for you. And really, as we encounter individuals, as you discovered your VIP, you have to find something that works for you. So what works for you is maybe different than what works for Raymond. As we go from virtue or value, we look at your identity. Raymond, what is it that is consistent in your life? Where has your identity been tested and tried, and you consider it true?
I think that it's important to understand that identity is the intersection of how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you. When those two internal and external perceptions come together.
Can you say that again? That was beautiful.
Identity is when your internal self-perception intersects with how the world sees you, how others see you. And so at the point that there's an intersection between the self-perception, the internal and the external, that's your identity. And there are 2 words that I'm convinced are going to be used at my funeral. And therefore, I've heard them, people say this about me. My wife said this, one of the words 2 weeks ago. And the first word is reliability. I consider myself highly reliable. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I say something, I mean it. So I'm reliable. And I know that that will be said by others. And that's how I guide myself. And the second word is unreasonable. And that comes from a quote from George Bernard Shaw, that the reasonable man adapts to the world, but the unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. and therefore all progress depends on the unreasonable man. And I was first called an unreasonable man in a third world country by the Minister of Defense from a small country because I was trying to get this thing done, and I was being unreasonable about my expectations. And so that's how people see me, and that's how I see the world. Those intersect, and I think that's, in a word I've heard you use, that's my authentic identity.
It is.
And I'm convinced that you see those two things too.
And it's why we're here today bantering and sharing that everybody has a VIP experience, but not everybody knows how to live it out. And so where that VIP becomes lived out is when we touch purpose. We touch this engagement of changing the world and making it a better place. Raymond, how would you touch that concept of purpose? And how do you want to change it to make it more personal?
I'm going to disappoint everyone.
I know.
Because there's really, in my mind, only one purpose. And a very long time ago, my grandmother, I had gotten in a fight. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. And she introduced me to the concept of noblesse oblige. And what she said to me was that you have all these gifts. You've been given these things, and you are obligated to serve humanity. I've distilled that down to my good camper rule. My job, my purpose is to leave this, to shuffle off this mortal coil and leave this campsite a little better than I found it. And I think that's all of our purposes, is to aid, support, and protect each other. That's our only purpose. The things that are happening in the meantime, making a living, raising a family, those are things that you're walking through to fulfill the purpose. And if everyone was just to work on making it a little bit better, it probably would be a lot better.
And as you can imagine, why did we bring Raymond in as a guest is because he's living these things out. Every one of our guests, we believe, is unarguable. They just know that their values are their values or their virtues. They're unshakable. It means their identity has been tested, it's tried, and they're living it out. And I like to bring another one. It's undeniable, and it's that their purpose is being lived out in action. And Raymond is consistent every day of the week, every time we get together. I know he's going to challenge my premise because he's a leader and he's taking action. And really, Raymond, what we're here today is encounter the AHRK and recognize that you as an individual have an experience. And we believe that people come to this encounter of AHRK at a different place, at a different time, but there's always a first step. And so that first step of the AHRK encounter is acknowledge. And so, Raymond, where are you at? What are you seeing? What's happening in the world? What's going on right now?
I think we had a great time. We had this pandemic, and to me, and we had this conversation 18 months ago, the pandemic was like God took an eraser to the whiteboard. There were no rules anymore on how we were going to conduct our Rotary meetings, the Masonic Lodge, our community groups, even our workplace, our families. And you could make up any rules that you wanted, and no one could say it was wrong because no one knew what to do. And
Absolutely.
So we've experienced this place. We've come from a place where we had to be extraordinarily creative as individuals, as communities, as a country. And look what we've gotten through. And I think that it was a wonderful test. And I'm excited to see how we build on that. Can we maintain what we've learned into the future?
And as we acknowledge on the AHRK journey, we're encountering immunity and leadership, and they come together in a way where you just highlighted there's always choice and there's always challenge. Can you give to me a little bit of that through an immunity lens? What do you see as the system as you acknowledge it? How do you see something that's coming against you and let it make you stronger?
Okay, so as we walk through life, we're going to have periods of light. It's goodness, it's joy with our families, great things happening. We're in our virtue zone or our value zone. And then we're going to walk into sections of chaos. We're going to open a door and it's going to be black. And there's going to be bad things happening. As long as we maintain one foot in the light, in our virtues, our values, our purpose, we can handle the chaos. And so the thing about to increase your immunity is to increase your connection to those things that are important to you and that work, so that when you face adversity, so when there is a sickness or an illness, you're strong enough to maybe even not even notice it. It may be a challenge to you. And the second thing about this is to realize that if we went through life, I'm convinced, and we were always in the light, it was always white and joyful, and I don't know, that'd be pretty boring. And if we were always in the chaotic,
It'd be pretty messy.
It would be just terrible. But the point's that we've got one foot in chaos and one foot in where you know what we're doing. That's the challenge. That's the growth. that's the place that I want to be. I want to be right there at the edge.
And really, that is what is the beginning step of ARC. It's a recognition that we're going to acknowledge what is seen and unseen. We're not going to try to deny it. We're going to say, what's the reality and how do I move forward? But once we see that there's challenges and we have choices, we move from acknowledging into healing. And what healing brings together is a recognition that I have a choice about my experience. And what Raymond has just highlighted for all of us is simply, I get to be a leader. I get to choose the outcome of my next step. And so as we engage healing, what we're really engaging is leading ourselves forward. And so as people are watching this, some people don't understand that they do have a choice, that leadership is something that can actually happen inside of us. So I'm going to invite you to just share a little bit. How do you lead? How do you lead yourself forward? What does a day look like? What does leadership look like in the life of Raymond? And how do you think that impacts your immunity?
Okay, so I spent a lot of times leading organizations. I've taught leadership. I wrote a couple of books on leadership. I can give you a definition of leadership. But what I've discovered is that leadership has a foundation. And that foundation is what we have to work both within ourselves and with the people that we're going to work with. And the foundation is trust. In fact, all the literature beginning in about the late 80s into the present day talks about a good leader establishes trust. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the people working with you. They have to trust you. But they never tell you, how do you develop trust? How do you gain the trust of the people who are working with you? How do you gain trust in yourself? And really, there's two things you can do. The first thing is trust is based on professional competence. If people know you know what you're doing, or you know what you're doing, then you're going to trust yourself. And people are going to trust you. And the second is consistency. If you are reliable and you are consistent in how you act, in other words, you can't be that person that they don't know whether they get Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde when they come. No matter where you operate from, no matter what that identity intersection is, you've just got to be that person. We all have deficits. We all have things that could be better about us, but we're always better when we're acting from where we're authentic than we're trying to be something we're not.
Amen. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to rewatch this 2 or 3 times because what Raymond just set down was something I want to pick back up. What I did catch in there is the concept of trust. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to take it to immunity in the concept of healing. Do you trust your immunity, Raymond? And if so, why do you trust your immunity?
Okay, let's talk biological. People will pray for a miracle. You are wearing the miracle. This human body is a miracle. There are messenger proteins that are sending the signals to the cells. And so anytime that I get sick and I want to pray about being sick, and I pray for my body to fix itself, because it is the miracle designed in your immunity. And there are all kinds of things you can do to boost that physically. But I think that while we do get ill, those illnesses, unless it's a long-term thing, are really kind of brief and sporadic in our lives. The real immunity I think we want to build is to the chaos around us, and an immunity to the things that stress us to the point where we don't do the best that we can. And I think that that's the immunity we want to build. Mm-hmm. And that's done through introspection as far as I'm concerned.
Introspection is another word of reflection.
Yes.
And go back to acknowledge and saying, look, you gotta be aware of what's going on inside of you, how you're experiencing that. And then you can move forward on what I might call an ARC journey and have less of the things that are chaos and more of the things that are strong and chosen. And then you build where you're looking to grow.
No matter what happens to me in a leadership position, in a family position, the first question I ask myself is, what is my part? What did I do to cause this? How am I involved in this? What did I do? Mm-hmm. And so that's the first thing. And it doesn't matter what happens. It could be, if I got into a traffic accident and it was clearly the other person's fault, my first question is, how did I fail to anticipate that? And so by going back and acknowledging and finding what I might do better the next time, yep, that's the beginning of healing. As far as I'm concerned, from any stressful encounter, is to relook at it and then rewire your mind to avoid it the next time, to grow from whatever happened, and therefore it becomes not a negative experience, but a positive growth experience.
So you're bringing together 2 concepts, and I want to make sure that you caught these concepts. And what Raymond just brought together was, you can rewire your mind, and you can take 100% responsibility as an act of leadership 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And what really is captured in there is recognizing that I can take a deep breath, reset, re-engage, and keep going forward. And Raymond may not even know this, but and Raymond probably does know this, but you're setting us up for the R, which you already talked about resiliency being something that's important to you. Resiliency is the ability to bounce back. It's the ability to get back up when you get back down. And we call that restore on the ARC path. And so we've acknowledged, we've healed, we restore, and we're going to build something here. And what we're building is our best life. What encourages you to want to keep building? I mean, you've had success, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're not done, right?
No, I'm not.
So why do you believe there's an excellent way to go ahead of you?
Well, first let me talk about resiliency. And every time I've said this to one of my grandsons the other day. And George Patton said, it doesn't matter how far you climb or how far you fall. What matters is how big you bounce. Because we're all going to climb, we're going to get to a peak on something, and we're all going to fall. And the people who climb and fall, that's average. It's the people who bounce. And so,
and I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
A lot of us feel like we're getting bounced, and that's not what you're talking about. You're not talking about just boom, 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 and it's just this repeat hardness of life. Bring it out a little bit more so that somebody can hear what you're capturing.
What I'm saying is it doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter that you fail. It matters that you recover from failure. It matters that you move past failure and you use it as a learning experience. That's the key to a full life, is because everybody's going to fail.
Yes.
Everybody's going to succeed. It's people who fail and then they stop when it's just one more push to get through to some other side where there is some other wonderful thing that you can experience or work with. And so success and failure do not matter to me. What matters is recovery, or as you would say, resiliency.
Yeah. And so I'll bring a Winston Churchill quote in on this. It's that failure is not fatal. As long as we get back up one more time, we're bouncing. And as we look at restore, you're a builder. Give me what are things that you're building right now? Share with our audience. Raymond, what are you building?
Well, we've got in the Rotary Club, we're building obviously the club up considerably, and we're building a new foundation within the club. And we've got 2, 3, 4 great projects coming up. And our success is now we're taking other community organizations who are coming to us and saying, okay, how can you help us? What can we do to be like you? And so we're establishing more community partnerships. And so I think that's the most important thing. It used to be that community groups were insular cells that did their own thing. And now what we're doing is we're reaching out. We're saying, we want to work with you. We want to take your talents, your experiences, your resources, and do more. And so really what I guess I'm building is relationships within the community. And that's very difficult.
Yes.
Because there are political issues and personal issues and agendas, and it's a big can of worms.
Is it a big can of worms, and yet you're fishing?
That's right.
And you're catching some amazing things. We've talked a little bit about the Rotary, and I might, based on what you shared earlier, you've led the Rotary in such a way that the Rotary has become immune to the chaos that's coming against it. And as the Rotary stands healthy, you're now partnering with other people and bringing health in other ways. And that segues to the kingdom. This concept of the kingdom is a concept that not everybody really necessarily holds for themselves, and it's really why we have an ARC path. If the journey is just about a journey, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet, gosh, you just don't ever get to the celebration. And we want to bring celebration every day, victory and abundance, an overwhelming sense of, yes, that's what the kingdom's all about. And what we've heard from you, Raymond, today is that you're building, you're growing, you're advancing, and you're not done yet. And so you stand with an unshakable, unarguable, even undeniable presence in this city. How might you capture, how would I word this? It's you have that hope that you believe that something great's about to happen.
Well, and I want to tell you, if you go back, we love to use this word hope. And we misuse this word hope because if you go back and you look at the early translations, especially in the Old Testament, the word hope would be better translated in the word trust.
Yes.
I hope this happens. I trust this is going to happen.
Beautiful.
And so when I think about hope, it's not a belief, a wish, a desire. When I tell you I hope something's happened, translate to I trust that it's going to happen. And so I think that that's a better way of looking at that word hope. And I think that these organizations are going to continue to grow, continue to work with each other, and do better things. And even the most important thing I think we're doing is we're really providing value to the members. We're giving them a path. We're giving them celebration. We're giving them a way to express resiliency within this kind of safety net called an organization.
Thank you, Raymond. We've encountered the AHRK journey today. We've gone down an AHRK path, and we've recognized that each one of us has a VIP. I'm inviting you right now to think about your own VIP, whether you use the word value like I would or Raymond's virtue. I invite you to recognize that there's something inside of you that's looking to come alive. Do you know what it is? You'll find it on the AHRK Encounter, and we will walk with you along the AHRK path. So we thank you that you joined us today. We hope that your leadership has grown. And as I say hope, I say trust. I believe that your leadership is increasing simply by your experience being on the journey with us today.
Agreed.
So thank you so much for following along. And we've got more resources and availability for you to follow up and go forward with us now.
Wow, that was incredible to hear how leadership and immunity tie in together through trust, resilience, and our self-perception and our extroverted perception tying in. If you're intrigued by what you heard today, check out our website at www.arcpath.com. Follow us on social media at ARCPath. And we even have a podcast featuring the talented Bernard Brashira and Casey Cox, available wherever you stream podcasts. Thank you for tuning in to AHRK Encounters, and we'll see you tomorrow.